Today is Monday, August 24th. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It is a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today out of the Big Book, we are on more about alcoholism. We'll be reading page 43. Out of the 12 and 12, we're on step 6. We'll read page 65. And of course, we will read NA's Just for Today and Al-Anon's Courage to Change. So with that, hope y'all are doing well this beautiful Monday morning, my friends. Life is good over here. Giant cup of coffee in my Marvel cup today. Woke up sober. And I always feel at peace after just waking up and saying the third step prayer. It's just what a blessing it is to be alive and sober today. And with that, let's go ahead and get to the good stuff. All right, my friends. So if you recall from the last few days of reading, we've got some great illustrations of the insanity and when it kicks in. Like for our friend Jim, the jaywalker, and even Fred. But there's a happy ending with Fred. And I love the last couple of lines here where he says, "My old manner of life was by no means a bad one. But I would not exchange its best moments for the worst that I have now. I would not go back to it even if I could." I think it's a beautiful picture of sobriety. So we are going to wrap up this chapter today. We're reading the rest of page 43. Fred's story speaks for itself. We hope it strikes home to thousands like him. He had felt only the first nip of the ringer. Most alcoholics have to be pretty badly mangled before they really commence to solve their problems. Many doctors and psychiatrists agree with our conclusions. One of these men, staff member of a world-renowned hospital, recently made this statement to some of us. "What you say about the general hopelessness of the average alcoholic's plight is, in my opinion, correct. As the two of you men, whose stories I have heard, there is no doubt in my mind that you were 100% hopeless, apart from divine help. Had you offered yourselves as patients at this hospital, I would not have taken you, if I'd been able to avoid it. People like you are too heartbreaking. Though not a religious person, I have profound respect for the spiritual approach in such cases as yours. For most cases, there is virtually no other solution. Once more, the alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink. Except in a few rare cases, neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power." At the 12 and 12 are on step 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And we left off on page 65. It is nowhere evident, at least in this life, that our Creator expects us to fully eliminate our instinctual drives. So far as we know, it is nowhere on the record that God has completely removed from any human being all of his natural drives. Since most of us are born with an abundance of natural desires, it isn't strange that we often let these far exceed their intended purpose. When they drive us blindly, or we willfully demand that they supply us with more satisfactions or pleasures than are possible or due us, that is the point at which we depart from the degree of perfection that God wishes for us here on earth. That is the measure of our own character defects, or if you wish, our sins. If we ask, God will certainly forgive our derelictions. But in no case does he render us white as snow and keep us that way without our cooperation. That is something that we are supposed to be willing to work toward ourselves. He asks only that we try as best that we know how to make progress in the building of character. So step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character, is AA's way of stating the best possible attitude one can take in order to make a beginning on this lifetime job. This does not mean that we expect all of our character defects to be lifted out of us, as the drive the drink was. A few of them may be, but with most of them, we shall have to be content with patient improvement. The keywords entirely ready underline the fact that we want to aim at the very best that we know or can learn. How many of us have this degree of readiness? In an absolute sense, practically nobody has it. The best we can do with all the honesty that we can summon is to try to have it. Even then, the best of us will discover to our dismay that there is always a sticking point. A point at which we say, no, I can't give this up yet. And we shall often tread on even more dangerous ground when we say, this I'll never give up. Such is the power of our instincts to overreach themselves. No matter how far that we have progressed, desires will always be found which oppose the grace of God. NA just for today, August 24th. Seeking God's will. We learn to be careful of praying for specific things. Basic text, page 46. In our act of addiction, we usually did not pray for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry it out. On the contrary, most of our prayers were for God to get us out of the mess that we had made ourselves. We expected miracles on demand. That kind of thinking and praying changes when we begin practicing the 11th step. The only way out of trouble we have made for ourselves is through surrender to a power greater than ourselves. In recovery, we learn acceptance. We seek knowledge in our prayers and meditation of how we are to greet the circumstances that come our way. We stop fighting, surrender our own ideas of how things should be, ask for knowledge, and listen for the answers. The answers usually won't come in a flash of white light accompanied by a drum roll. Usually the answers will come merely with a quiet sense of assurance that our lives are on course, that a power greater than ourselves is guiding us on our paths. We have a choice. We can spend all of our time fighting to make things come out our way. We can surrender to God's will. Peace can be found in accepting the ebb and flow of life. Just for today, I will surrender my expectations, look to my higher power for guidance, and accept life. Al-Anon's Courage to Change, August 24th. I'm usually such a gentle, easygoing person that you'd never believe what happens when I get angry. I fly into a rage. My blood pressure seems to double, and I unleash a torrent of profanity. After years in Al-Anon, my anger is still a problem, but my behavior has greatly improved. Some time ago, my dog got its feet tangled in an extension cord and broke a beautiful vase. My temper flared and angry words cut like sharp swords. What helped me to change this behavior was the look of hurt and bewilderment on my pet's face at the sudden, violent change in me. If a little animal could respond this way, what were my outbursts doing to the people in my life who understood every nasty word? Today's reminder: I am a human and I get angry, but I don't have to act out my anger in destructive ways. I do not have the right to take it out on others. Whether my usual response is to scream, sulk in cold silence, or lash out with cruel words, today I can look at what I do when I get mad. Maybe next time I will try something new. We can pave the way for calm, reasonable communication only if we first find healthy outlets for our own negative feelings. Quote from The Dilemma of the Alcoholic Marriage. All right, my friends, that concludes today's reading, and man, do I love what the 12 and 12 talks about today on page 65. I remember when I first got to 65, I felt so great after finally, confessing these things to another person and hearing their perspective in step 5, right? And I've told that story many times about my drive home, just feeling so free and excited and encouraged that, holy cow, this program is working. God is working in this situation. Man, I was blown away, right? And then I get to step 6. And at first, when I read it, I'll just read it again. We were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. I remember thinking, I'm desperate, but at the same time, I don't think I'll ever be perfect. I don't know how to do this, So the bottom line is, I was scared. I'm like, well, how do I do this right? I thought I had to get it exactly right. And I know now that the rest of the steps, aside from step 1, are just perfect ideals we want to strive toward. And I love the clarification on page 65 right here at the bottom paragraph. So step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character, is AA's way of stating the best possible attitude one can take in order to make a beginning on this lifetime job. That's it. It's a beginning on a lifetime job. This does not mean that we expect all of our character defects to be lifted out of us as the drive to drink was. A few of them may be, but with most of them, we shall have to be content with patient improvement. The keywords entirely ready underline the fact that we want to aim at the very best that we know or can learn. I think it's the idea of being ready. To be open to the idea that my higher power can remove these defects over time. But I love that they say, in order to make a beginning on this lifetime job. And I'll give you a quick example. One of the fast ones, obviously for me, was the obsession to drink and the insanity, right? Every now and then, I might still romance a drink. But I mean, it's very rare. It's few and far between. And I praise my higher power for that. But overall, that went pretty quickly. And I'm grateful for that. But one that has taken some time is pride and selfishness and self-centeredness. I have to pray about that every single day. As a matter of fact, right before this, I was talking about the 3rd step prayer. One of the defects I constantly have to ask for is, God, please take away my difficulties like selfishness and self-centeredness, fear, anger, anxiety, insecurity, all this stuff, right? But I will say this about pride. I've seen improvement. And I'll give you an example. I look at failure, or I look at criticism differently these days. I'm a teacher, right? And I get evaluated periodically throughout the year. And of course, they go by a rubric and everything, and they come in. Now, when I was younger, I get all nervous. I would try to do the dog and pony show, hoping that I could check every box and that they would give me good scores and that they would all like me and all these things. And they would be like, oh, wow, Rob's a really good teacher. Look at that. Definitely prideful. Now I still want to do the best I can. But if they give me low scores for whatever reason, I'm going to look at those scores and go, oh, wow, okay. Yeah, I could get better at that. Yeah, I appreciate you being honest about that. Like, that's something that I noticed too I need to work on. So it's good to have that second opinion about that. Kind of validates what I was thinking I needed to improve on. I almost appreciate someone just telling me the truth instead of, no, I not almost appreciate it. I do appreciate someone telling me the truth instead of somebody telling me what I want to hear. It's like, if I were to go to school, with a horrible hair day or something, I don't know. And everyone goes, oh yeah, your hair looks good. It looks good. Looks good. All right. But nobody's telling me, hey man, half of your hair is sticking up. I would rather somebody just tell me the truth so I can fix the problem, or at least try to, so I look at feedback differently, or criticism differently. It's just feedback. I look at failure differently. It's just feedback to get better. That is something that, say, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to say, or maybe not even that long ago. That is something that has progressed over time. I do see progress. Am I still prideful? Yes, I can be prideful. Can I still get jealous? Yes. Can I still get insecure? Yes. But I do see progress, and I praise my higher power for that. But my friends, that's all we have time for today. I hope y'all have a great one. Please know, as always, I don't speak on behalf of AA, NA, Al-Anon, any other sect or denomination. I am just a joyful, grateful recovering alcoholic, honored to be here in this lifeboat of recovery. And if we're given another set of 24 hours, my friends, I sincerely look forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow.